like what Mar. Oh,
And that's the best way to open.
with a big
Okay.
smile.
And a baby. How could you not want to open with a baby? All right. So back by popular demand, right? We recorded these two episodes. They were pre-recorded because we just wanted to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the story that was being told and that we were telling it in the most efficient and fleshed out way possible. Something that honors what you have gone through, but also recognizes the struggles that not just you, but many continue to have, right, Tia? There's
Yes,
a few more obreros out there, right?
there is, and I was just talking to you about it. There's this Saturday. I heard a young girl by her name Elizabeth in Sarai Cavalini's podcast of another exobrera, and yeah, and I know, but not at least two more. So hey, there's Rogelio, and so yeah, I'm amazed at how much more. And this is just the people that have the courage to speak out, like
Yes.
ex obrera and Elizabeth. Can you imagine how many others? So we're hoping that we get her here. I feel that she speaks more comfortable in English. She mentioned that, and we're just here just to hear her out, and so that we can know your story. And as you said, ex obrera is um, it's almost like a warning. It's like it sounds wonderful and sounds like a big honor to do that, but then when you're out there, yikes! The life that you live. So from here, I'd kind of like to start the Hawaii story.
yeah.
Oh, before you do, hang on, hang on. See. To all the obreros out there that are just, you just listen to see if we're talking crap or to see if we're demonic, to see if we're out there, spreading the false word or anything like that. And you've listened and you've seen that that's not what we do. That's because your story is a story worth telling. And
Mhm.
everything you lived up until this point, it matters. It really does. Uh, and all we seek to do with this platform is not so much help you, but instead just give you a platform to really express your heart, to express your emotions in a healthy way, but also in a way that we can all, just share in the experience, like, las chismosas de Hawaii, which we're going to talk about, or you thought that you were leaving las chismosas in Australia to go to Hawaii, and where there was none of that? Nah, wrong.
Well, and not only that, but we know that there's so many more exobreras. We know that, and exobreros. So we want you to know that we're listening and we know what you're going through. And here's a safe spot that you can come and tell your story. You don't have to give your name. Look at exobrera. She's just expressing what she went through. So, like you said, um, maybe a little bit of just chisme, but for me, it's not really chisme. It's a story. So anyway, just my thought.
Yeah. Oh, are you coming at me right now? How dare you? Oh, no. No, not at all. Ex Obrera, I want to give like the proper introduction to the Hawaii, right? It's easy to just say, let's talk about Hawaii. And then we go from there, right? But
Yeah.
this is where we left off. And I want you to decide, where you want to pick up and then take us to Hawaii, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we left off on a couple of notes. One of them was the turmoil that all the couples were going through, married or not, the children that are born, that were born in Australia amidst the starvation that you were surviving, not just you, but 18 other people. And then we also left off at the as a mother, the things that you experience, right? So we ended it with the opportunity to go to Hawaii. So is there anything right now amongst those pieces that you want to touch up on before we go into Hawaii?
No. Well, before I get started, I want to say hi. We are live, correct?
Yeah, we
Like
are. We're live.
live. live and in action. So,
Yeah,
hi
yo.
everybody who's listening, and hello to everybody who will be listening to this podcast at a different time. Um, I'm Ex Obrera, and I've told my story, my experience, my testimony. So here we are, part three, episode three, and I don't think I want to touch anything right now with what I've said because I feel
Okay.
that Um, where I do have more of a saying, it's going to be here now with the
Oh,
story of Hawaii.
why? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's get straight into it then.
Okay.
The very first question that I have for you that get us going is, what were you told? What were you and your husband told when the blessing of going to Hawaii became available?
So when we were ready to depart to Hawaii, I must mention that we did wait like a month or so, 2 months max after Santa Cena. Only reason it's because they were trying to settle everybody in. And since we were going to be new obreros, newcomers to Hawaii, they were still deciding. It had to be that where to put us. Um, During that time, I do remember it was Hernan Licea who was in contact frequently with us, telling us to just be prepared because any moment given, we were going to have to depart like ASAP. Don't think about it, just go. So just make sure you have funds for your trip, one way ticket, and just wait for orders from above to tell you what island you were going to go to. So we waited, and if I am correct, I do remember correctly, it was around the ends of September, October, around there, I want to say. I might be mistaken, but I do remember it was after Santa Cena that we were told we were going to the island of Oahu. Oh, just said it. Jesus. Oh, well. Oh,
Mm,
well. Yes.
it
Okay.
is what it is.
Yeah, it's okay. That slipped out, but it's fine. It's not
Of
like if
all
we
the
were the only ones.
recordings, this is the third episode, and the first two you didn't even slip up once.
No,
See, on the live you
it's
slipped up.
okay. It's okay.
You're right, it
Regardless,
is.
it's fine. It's gonna be told the way it has to be told. So yes, we were sent out to the island of Oahu, because they were going through necessity, obrero wise, like a number. They needed obreros. And in my mind, I thought, okay, you know what? Everything that I have spoken, o sea, like what I've said in the past podcast, in the episodes, everything that
Hmm.
I had thought, in my mind, I said, okay, you know what? This is a new place. It's the US. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be that bad, especially because it's mainland. It's my country. So
You have
Hawaii
rights.
sounds like a
Yeah.
beautiful experience. And ironically, I had always mentioned to myself, I would always tell myself ever since I was young, the two places, ironically, okay, I did not know, but I was pretty much manifesting where I was going to end up. The two places I would never go visit would be Hawaii or a very far on the other side of the world. I always thought Australia because Australia had horrible big animals. I have, insect phobia. I forgot the name of it, but so
Insect
ironically,
phobia.
yeah, I ended up in the places that I never wanted to go to. Um, why I don't know, but I will say that at first I was in disapproval with the decision that they had made for us to go to Hawaii because I would always hear no, not chismes, no gossip, okay? It was just bad experiences with people who had gone to Hawaii, speaking like obrero wise, or just people
Mhm.
who would go visit the churches or the small obritas in Hawaii. They would always say it was terrible, they were forgotten, not to mention how all these ministers, like the ministers would talk about Hawaii, oh, los obreros de Hawaii. Just negative
Yeah.
stuff. So I thought to myself, going from like the number one place that was supposedly always on the mind of Hermano Nazon to going to the lowest obrero, like obra wise, where they would always criticize and always mention that the people in Hawaii who were serving in the labor were stuck ups. I was scared. Honestly, I was scared because I said, am I gonna turn into one of those types of people? Stuck up, thinking I'm better than everybody else? But I said, you know what? Maybe we can be different. Maybe we can be the exception because we came from Australia where we were literally struggling financially, but at the same time spiritually because it was so hard to bring a soul, you can say. So I thought, and I had in the back of my mind, well, I'm going to be a happiness to servant of God because I'm going to work my butt off to make sure we bring the almas to
Of
church
course.
because we come from Australia. So we know the struggle it is to bring a soul. So I'm just going to put all the effort I can. So I went to Australia, and I'm pretty sure my ex, he had the same mentality, being the exception. And this is funny because we did had mentioned to each other, we're going into the gutter, but just how we're going in, we're gonna come out triumphant,
Oh,
and we're gonna be sent out to an actual church. And we promised ourselves, you know what? Because that's what, and I do have to mention it. The pastors that would know us that we were going to Hawaii. Literally, this is what they would tell us. Ustedes van a lo peorcito. You guys are going to the worst place. So they were trying to discourage us or scare us or maybe just warn us. Obviously, we wouldn't take it that way. We would just say, they're just saying these things to make us feel like we have a bigger responsibility as obreros to be more consecrated. So me and my ex, we looked at each other, we're like, well, in the name of Jesus Christ, you know how we would speak before.
of course,
In
of
the
course.
name of Jesus Christ, you know, in the believing in the prayer, restoring of God, we're gonna go into the gutter, and just how we're gonna go in. Our goal was to come out within a year or two. So we were
Pause.
sent out to a church. Yes.
So were
Okay.
you not, you were not unconditional then, you were, or were you?
We were not okay. We were volunteer.
Okay.
Like if we're speaking on those letters that we would write and give or mail out, or I don't know what they would do with those letters, but they would always tell us, you guys need to write a letter if you guys want to be unconditional or unconditional, or volunteer. There's no right or wrong. And they did tell us, this is what servant of God just wants to see from each and every single one of you as couples, if you guys are on the same mentality or not. So we did say, even though I have such many years and months in the obra, I would like to stay as a volunteer. And I don't know why they would do that, honestly, now that I think about it. I
Legally.
say, yeah, legally, because
Yeah.
I do say, well, legally, because, or like, if we're literally, I don't know how to say it, because the cult praises themselves saying that nobody's there by force, and that supposedly they pay the obreros and everybody who's in the ministerial body, which is a big lie. We never got paid. They only did that, and not that I'm trying to focus on that subject right now,
Yeah.
but they only started doing that when Nason was arrested. They forced everybody. I remember,
Hmm.
at least in Hawaii,
Yep.
we were forced to put our names, o sea, like our names, how it is on our IDs issued on our social securities, just your name, your birthday, and saying, like, just in case if we were to be questioned, we can say that you guys are paid. That's what they told us. So that's why I say legally,
Yes,
entre
they could put
comillas,
that on it.
Yeah.
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 There are two things I want to touch up there.
Yes.
The first one, minister compensation, and then we're gonna go back to your arrival or the everything that happened before. So the minister compensation, yes, I did. So where I was at the deacon, uh, they made them corporate employees. So there was a contract that was sent out to them, basically pay structure, the debit card that they were going to be receiving for the direct deposit, and then they had to either waive. which most of them had to, they were told to, waive the insurance. So the church wouldn't have to get insurance for them, that they would have to go out there on their own and get their own health insurance, their own life insurance, and they had to use their direct deposit pay for that, amongst other things. But it was like a super like legal 10, 15 page document that I had only seen uh, at corporate places, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it absolved them from whatever. Like I didn't even get to read all of it. I was only allowed to read the first 2 pages of it. So yeah, I will say that that didn't happen until after he got arrested.
Yes.
Now going back to Hawaii was the worst place. I want to throw perspective in for this one. So previously in Australia, you were about 17, 18 people living in one household.
Mm-hmm.
There was no moment of like where you could spend time building your marriage because you were always busy either with work or your husband was out there, your ex-husband was out there doing whatever he was tasked to do, on top of
Mm-hmm.
living off of a very small budget that you gave up 90% of your salary, keeping 10% of it for yourselves, and you were being supported by your family across the states secretly, so it wouldn't cause dissension amongst the other people that were not receiving support while living in poverty and a cash only under the table paying type jobs. You're telling
Correct.
me, you're telling me that whole situation. Oh, and on top of that, you end up having kids in the
Yep.
middle of this situation. You're telling me that Hawaii was still considered the gutter, worse than poverty stricken situation, cut off in a country 20 plus hours away through airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii was worse than that.
Hawaii. Hawaii was worse than that. But I think they
Oh,
applied it to them for their convenience because they didn't get to take away that um what they would call it, the system. They wouldn't be able to take away 90% from the earnings. I think
mm,
it had to be that. These are just my um well, yeah, it's just my opinion, my
yeah,
thought on why. Because in Hawaii, for many of those who don't know, Hawaii system was different. So we would keep 90% of whatever it is that was earned through work, and we're obligated to give 10%.
so
I
now
have
the full reverse.
right,
Okay.
I have
Yes.
a question. Since, and I know it's not something, it was something that I wanted to ask before, but it didn't really apply to it because you were out of the country. But now that you're in the country, in the US, were you guys allowed to ask for assistance, public assistance?
Oh, oh my God. Why, Tia Tavi, why did you have to bring that up?
I'm sorry. The reason why I say
No,
it,
no, 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 no.
every
I'm being sarcastic.
no, but
No, I'm glad. I'm glad you bring it up.
every minister that came here to Sacramento, the first thing they
Yeah.
asked was, "Where's the welfare office?" That's the first thing they asked because
Oh my
They
goodness.
go get Medi-Cal and food
Yeah.
stamps.
Yeah. So Hawaii was no different. Just how many ministers in Sacramento, the first thing that they asked. I do recall when my ex and I got there. That was kind of like in a nice way, very polite. Oh, so what are your experiences? What type of work have you done? To my ex and my ex-husband, he would just, oh, brother, I know how to do this, 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 and that. Or say, just whatever it is that he had experience in, yeah, pretty much in labor. Like they were talking about like construction, drywall, what is it?
Typical jobs. Yeah.
Painting. Yeah, just
Yeah.
typical,
Construction type jobs.
labor. Yep. Um,
Mm.
because that's what the obreros, well, most of the brother obreros worked in. So I do remember the wife of the responsible. She said, and she told me, sister, something that you should do to help out your husband. What? You should go apply for welfare. What do you mean? Yeah, for like food stamps, and maybe in some cases they can even give you cash aid. And I said, why? because everything here is expensive. Let's be honest, it's a beautiful island, but just as beautiful as it is, it's really expensive.
It
And
is.
don't forget, you guys are going to have to start giving rent, or what we would refer to it as aportación. So that
Oh,
was that one word. Oh, I hate it so much. I'm sorry, but it just brings so many like
good.
negative memories.
Let her
But
know.
it's okay. I'm fine talking about it. I have healed. I'm okay. But sometimes just remembering those first 2 days,
Hmm.
man, it was hard. So I must say the flight to Hawaii was amazing. Loved it. We get there,
Okay.
we're waiting to be picked up by the brother who was responsible, who we didn't know because ironically, this brother didn't even know if he was going to be the responsible obrero or not, because he had also just arrived to the island. So he picked us up, and we didn't have an actual place to sleep because the house was just jammed with all these other obreros.
How many?
Let's see if I do remember correctly. Let's see, one, two, including children. Okay, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the other section was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then including us, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Yes,
27 people living in a house or apartment?
in a house.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, all
So
right.
the order was for us, the newly obreros who had just arrived there, to look for a place as soon as possible. But obviously, I mean, we didn't know the island. Well, at least not me and my husband. If these other obreros, they had been jumping from one island to another. Well, not jumping, but they were sent out to one place and then to another and then back and forth. um we didn't have the knowledge of who to contact, where to look, or where church was, because tampoco we wanted to rent out somewhere that was going to be super far away from the location where church was rented.
Yeah.
So we were put in the meantime, and this is embarrassing to say, but I have to say it. We were put in brothers' homes.
Okay.
My family and that brother's family. um it's embarrassing. It is.
You
Honestly,
stayed
I
as
think it's
guests
embarrassing.
in members' houses.
Yes, in the members' homes. Um, and it was pretty much the only two active members. Well, the families, those were pretty much the most active families in the church at that
Oh,
time.
we.
You know what's really crazy is to think how unorganized this cult is. That
Yes.
a la brava, I would say, just like, okay, go. No planning, no nothing. You take care of you, and that's it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and what I would like to know is, with all those people that were there when you were there, how many new souls, Hawaiian people, were converted to La Luz del Mundo with all of them there? I mean, it's such a big sacrifice that you guys to go there. You know, we're talking about
Yes.
your relationship with your husband, raising your kids, having a normal life that you don't have, and it's okay if you're organized and you, because I know one thing. I don't know about you, Kevin, but if I lose my job or whatnot, you know, or they take away hours, you stress out because you're going, how am I going to provide to my family? So
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine her and her husband going to an unknown place, not having income, and going, now what? Just a
Yep.
thought. Thought. It's like,
Well, it leads to what we're actually going to discuss next, which is beautiful segue. I don't know how what else to add to that. So we leave off where in Australia, and this is just for context, right? Uh, you're struggling with your husband at the time
Mm-hmm.
because you were feeling unseen, and the
Mm-hmm.
words were disrespected because over there it was, even in Nicole, that was my experience as well, it was common for even the married people to go and talk to las hermanas, the
Mm-hmm.
sisters, because they need to discuss something church related, or they're working on a project together and they need to discuss it, or they spoke to a visitor and they now have rapport to build from, right? Instead of spending time with his your wife or his wife
Mm-hmm.
and kind of building your marriage as any normal relationship would require. On top of lack of intimacy in the sense of that there were so many people living in that house in Australia that you don't get a chance to build on your marriage. So all the strains that you had in Australia, did they carry over into Hawaii as well? Or were you both at a more better place while living in what you call the gutter?
So, I think I just blinded myself, and I see it this way now, and I have to be honest. I blinded my feelings. I pretty much muted my feelings, yeah. And I thought it's going to get better. And I want to say at first it did get better, and I think it helped because with those members that we were staying with, they showed a lot of love to each other as a couple, and they showed that support to each other along with their kids within themselves. And
Makes sense.
yes, I will say, um, going back to the Tabby's question, um, no, there were not Hawaiian natives that were converted, and the only family who would bring native Hawaiians to church was this family that we stood with. My respects to that sister and that brother till this day. Even though they're still in church, I don't know if they're doubting, but honestly, they were the only brothers working, you can say, for their salvation into bringing souls to church because the obreros wouldn't do much. It's sad to say, but for the moment, since I did see that example from this couple, I said, you know what? Maybe it's gonna be different here, you know? So I put effort into the relationship. I try to forget about those little feelings that I would get here and there, uncertainties. And I said, you know what? Like, let me leave that behind and let me just work. It wasn't easy, especially knowing that there were obreras. It's not
Around, yeah.
easy. Yeah, it wasn't easy. But at the same time, I said, okay, if these obreros who've been married for such and for so many years and they've been all over the islands, how bad can it be? It shouldn't be that bad. There has to be trust. There has to be a different mentality from my part. I have to put more effort into becoming a better wife. And since a lot of sisters right there as obreras, they would bring up questions, they weren't scared when the ministers would come. I said, you know what, maybe it's okay to question here, anything that I see wrong or something that I just don't know. I think it's okay to question the ministers when they come and do supervisions. And maybe that's what the ministers would refer to as they were rebels. They would do their own thing because sometimes it might have seemed like, oh, the sisters are over the brothers, but it wasn't. It was just that, and I see it like this. It's the only logic I have. It's because, like, I think the reason why the sisters were like that, it's because the brothers would work most of the day. So the hermanas would try to go out when they were able to go out preaching. And if not, they would just, be working with like
So they
activities.
gained an opinion. Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. I see. In other words, they found strength in their voice.
Yes.
What a bad thing inside of that place.
Well, if you put it that way, from
I
a
mean,
from a from a luz del mundo, yes, it's very bad.
it's a bad thing. It is.
Um, they would
Well,
say, and I'm sorry, I just have to say this. The
say it. Yeah.
ministers once when we were there for like 2 years and more, the ministers within those comments they would say, "Oh, es que las mujeres aquí tienen los pantalones. Women carry the pants here in the relationship here in this island, precisely in this island." So I
That
didn't see it till later, but I never thought like that. I just said, well, pretty much we're the ones handling everything.
okay? So we're finding an optimistic point
Yeah.
in this moment, right? So you see that you're able to use your voice. It has weight in it, and it came from the very thing that the cult didn't want the women to have, which was the full control of going out to preach, going out to do the very thing that men were expected to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing God's work, you realize that women have a voice and they
Yes.
do have a place. And why should we be treated as less than what they are when we're doing the same thing they're doing? Right?
Correct.
Does that about, am I understanding that better?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems like it's an optimistic moment, and it seems like you're working on your relationship with your husband. You have an example of what a loving couple looks like and everything. So you said it yourself. You seemed like there was a moment where you felt like things were turning around and they were looking for the better.
Yeah.
What what happened that pushed you past that optimistic bubble and it burst?
So what happened, and I have to say it. Um, Even though I didn't feel invisible as an obrera, and I didn't feel as small because I would see these sisters obreras had a voice in the saying, and it seemed like they knew more than what I knew. I took small examples, small pieces from each and every single one of them. And the only thing that pretty much pushed me back was seeing the behavior of some brothers towards the jóvenes. And I
Predatorial
would,
behavior?
I'm sorry?
Predatorial behavior?
Uh, you can say that. Um, in a sense that when we would go out and do like the activities, like the tamales, tacos, BS if they were to say no, it wasn't. We were just trying to get along with them. But you do not flirt with jóvenes, period. Especially when you're not around your spouse. And I would see that. So I started hearing things from these hermanas how they wouldn't get along with the jóvenes because of certain behaviors that their husbands would have. So I don't know if that's the reason why I kind of just pretty much just went back to starting point one, if I want to say it like that, where
It's a
I
nice way to
where I
say it.
would have doubts, where I would have bits of jealousy, because unfortunately there were many times where my ex, the way he would smile, the way he would just talk to the obreras, even though it was, oh, it's just getting along with them, or I'm just a charming person, if that's what he would think. I'm sorry, I'm not, I'm not trying to talk
No,
crap about him,
I,
but they would say, oh, he's nice. He has
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
charisma. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but yeah, he's married, you know? So those were one of the things that I felt as a wife that, I had to be I don't know the correct word for this, but I had to be on the defensive mode as a wife,
Yep.
as a
Protect. Yep.
woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to protect my emotions. I had to just set my foot down because I thought, okay, if these brothers who are older than us are putting this example, it's going to be easy for any man to think it's right as an obrero to behave the way he's behaving. There were some stuff I am going to, bypass and not talk about,
Yeah.
only because I don't want to expose things, very deep things that did happen between the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But as a mother, and that kind of brings me into being a mother in that environment, what was it like how was it, or what was it like to take care of my kids while dealing with these types of emotions, mixed emotions, I had to prove to myself that regardless if it was with my ex or not, I was still me. I couldn't lose myself over a man, no matter if he was an obrero, no matter if he was a member, no matter if he was whoever it was. Nobody was going to tell me how to behave or how to respect my husband, well, ex, knowing things that should have not had happened or should have not been done. So whenever the ministers would come and give us supervision and sometimes talk, hermanas, respect your husbands, listen, I would think to myself, I'm sorry, bullshit. Nope,
Straight up.
I'm sorry. And I probably seemed defiant because I ended up doing like my will, if we want to say it like that. Like I was going to do what I thought was right. I started becoming rebellious in a way that I wasn't being an example to the members, the sisters, because they would always tell us, be an example to the hermanas so they can respect their husbands. And I started speaking my mind, but as like in the motherly point of view, I had to make, I had, or I needed to make my children feel safe around me. If dad was going to be absent, even though present physically in the body, but absent mentally and emotionally, I had to be there. And I'm sorry if he's ever listening to this, but I need to say it. If that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense
It does.
because I'm getting all these flashbacks. Obviously, I'm not going to cry about it cuz it's the past, but I will say that as a woman, wife, mother, I struggled alone emotionally,
Hmm.
mentally with my children. I really did.
I want to bring it back to the talking to jóvenes part, right?
Mhm.
The reason I chuckled, well, other than that was a good comedic timing, but the other piece was I saw myself in those very shoes. I did,
Mhm.
and it makes me ask the question: why did I feel like it was okay to even talk to other girls or other jóvenes while I was in a either secret relationship, secretly talking to somebody else, or just being, you know, seriously talking to somebody else, right?
Mhm.
And it all goes back, and you hit the nail on the head, right? I'm going to say it in Spanish because this is so embarrassing to look back on it now, but I would tell myself, why is it that it's easy for me to go talk to the holiness, easy for me to be, that's why I was made director, because I
Mhm.
have the talents to be able to communicate with all. I have the charisma to be able to speak to different types of brothers and at different levels of faith
Mhm.
and bring them together. I was convinced of that to the point where I said to myself, yo tengo esa gracia para con
Mhm.
todos, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you just said. I'm just that good. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
that
like that
charismatic.
charismatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
But the truth is it's not charisma. I mean,
No.
it's not that you were selected for that. It's the environment that
Yeah.
that cult pushes out. Women are not women in there. You really are objects of obedience, objects of desire, that you will only ever get to a certain degree and that's it. And I think
Mhm.
Dira said it 2 episodes ago that the whole idea that a woman could become a diaconisa inside of that cult, it's a joke. To be a diaconisa didn't really mean anything inside of that place. Not that it couldn't mean something. It was never meant to be something, but just as a way to keep control of the women. So
Mhm.
you're right. It wasn't just him. And if he's listening, I want him to know that as embarrassing as it sounds, it wasn't just him. I saw it myself. I
Yeah.
participated in that way of thinking myself. And it wasn't until I cold water in my face where it was make a decision. You're
Mhm.
either taken or you're not. But if you're not, we're not going to be together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Kevin, I want to say something in regards to what you're mentioning. Um, Sometimes being an obrero, um, we don't see it that way because we're taught to talk to everybody who crosses our path, right? So we're taught to be nice, to be respectful, just to be friendly. But something that I always did have trouble with, and I would always fight with him, was about having respect for the relationship. And I would tell him, if such brother does this, because we would see a lot of stuff, and I will say that responsible brother, the way he would talk directly to one sister in particular, made not just me, not just my ex, but many people who were in that house think that maybe there was going something was going on. Maybe they were flirting, maybe they were secretly having a relationship, but which we doubted after just the way we saw things. So maybe it was him just, being obsessed with this joven. But then again, being friendly, polite to people doesn't mean you have to disrespect your spouse in a relationship. Like, you should know your place, you should know how to behave yourself behind your wife's back, behind your husband's back. And that was something that I always struggled with him, because I would mention it 1, 2, 5, 10 times. I want to say, and I do recognize, maybe it seemed like if I was obsessing over that, which I wasn't. I was just in a way trying to show that it was affecting me
yeah,
emotionally. It
of
was
course.
affecting me to the point that I would start seeing more than what I should have. And it's sad to say, because I will say it, he did tell me, think whatever you want, you're crazy. But it
So,
wasn't.
yeah. You know what, Mika? I have to say something, and I'm going to put my big 6 to 7 year old uh, comment from my
Uh
part.
huh.
Um, I've been through it,
Yeah.
gone through it, and lived it.
Mm-hmm.
In the work environment, with disrespect, in a church environment, any kind of leadership role, that person that has the power is going to take advantage of the attention that they're getting. And
Mm-hmm.
especially, someone said here, it made a comment of saying, in La Luz del Mundo, it means nothing. You can, I interviewed when I had my podcast of ¿Por qué callar si nací gritando?
Yeah.
I interviewed this young girl from Mexico, like way down south, right? And she mentioned that the pastor would wait for her outside her elementary school, and
Mm.
eventually he raped her.
Oh
Again,
my
it's
goodness.
power that
Yeah.
these women are given, and women too. Don't get me wrong, women too.
Mm-hmm.
That you give them that power, and it's okay. And then, like you said, they tell you, "Estás loca," think what you want to think, and that's one. But again, it's that stressful situation that your marriage is in as a couple, as a family. It makes it even 10 times worse. I want to make it very clear, this is not a podcast to bring your husband down. It really isn't.
Oh.
I really
No.
think it's a little bit of everything. And I'm saying this because I want to cover your butt behind in regards to, I know you're not here for that. You're just being honest and telling us and sharing your story of what you went through when you were in Laura, when you were in the labor.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it very hard when you don't have that privacy. Like if I feel that my husband is busy and it's not giving me the attention, I go, babe, I miss you, and then and then we go on a date and we're good. But in
Yeah.
this situation, how do you do that? You can't.
Well, I want
Yeah.
to add there
Uh-huh.
that everything that the both of you have said just now, I can only ask this question. When did you hear a pastor preach how a husband is supposed to treat his wife and the boundaries he has to have on the pulpit? Was it
Many
not
people.
instead women obey your husbands, men, you're the head of the household, and you also have spiritual responsibilities to these souls? Not once can I say that I heard any minister other than Agustina Almada who alluded to some of it when he was making funny jokes and telling stories about marriages he's dealt with. But not once did I ever hear, hey, once you're married, stop talking to other girls. It's disrespectful to your wife. Not once did I hear that. Instead, it was, tengan esa gracia, hermanos. Usen su espiritualidad, hermanos. Vengan a la oración, hermanos, para que el Señor les ayude, que los inspire, para que sean esposos agradables ante los ojos de Dios, not esposos agradables a sus esposas, which is the whole reason
Mhm.
you're an esposo in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
So, to all the guys listening, Tia Tabi's right. We're not coming at you. You can see that I put myself in that same situation, and it's just the truth. We were not taught to be good husbands. We were taught to be good members and good servants to
Yeah.
the will of God, right?
Yes. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but many times, and I was going to say it many times, in the pulpit, many of the ministers, when they would preach about matrimony, they would shift it slowly into women's fault. Think about why. And they would pretty much expose women's behavior, saying it's because you're like, I forgot, was it Jezebel? I forgot who it was in the Bible, but they would compare them. Don't be this woman. You have to be. And they would even go to the extent and had the audacity, I'm going to say, to compare how we should be. You women should be like Maria Magdalena. At some points, donde le está lavando los pies al Señor Jesucristo. Cristo es what was it? El amo de la iglesia. Like that, that would just make me feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Especially, I would think to myself, okay, why is it that we're in a way attacked? When sometimes we sisters would go looking for an explanation, looking for help from the minister or the minister's wives, they would dismiss us and they would just tell us, acércate a Dios, get close to God, consecrate yourself.
Obey, obey.
Yeah,
Don't
like
think
leave
about it.
everything in,
Obey.
in the hands of the Lord. And how I said it in the beginning, I think I said it, and if I didn't, well, I'm gonna say it.
Drop it.
What was his name? Guillermo Victorin told me, and that's something I'm never gonna forget. We had like 1 to 2 weeks married. We had recently came from Guadalajara, and I caught him talking to all these other women that he was promising he was gonna get at them, and I called Victorin, and he told me, "Don't worry, this is something new. It's not like if you or him have been married before. Just forgive him, give him time. It's okay. It's not easy, but you guys will get there." I'm never going to forget that because that just showed me as a minister, a deacon, that just showed me his side, like
Right.
his true colors. He didn't listen. And sadly and unfortunately, it also happened in Hawaii when I went to the diacono and exposed what was going on, brother. And it's funny because he knew us from Australia. And I told him this and this is going on. I'll talk to him. He never spoke to him. Never.
Why would?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. Al contrario, on the contrary, he was, pretty much, hey, how you been? How's everything? All that's good. And they would just gossip within each other, within the obreros. And it's sad because it's not just us, it's not just the people in Hawaii, it's in a lot of places. I'm pretty sure in Mexico it's worse in other countries, but in the US what I saw, it's unbelievable, and that's the reason why many of the marriages within the obra are are doomed, and they're just there for the kids or just to be of a good example to the church, and they're frustrated and they become bitter. I became bitter. And I will say it. And I'm sorry if we go a little bit past over the hour, but I will say it.
Oh,
I became bitter. And I have to acknowledge and point it out because in Hawaii, I thought I was going to be happy. And I wasn't. I struggled a lot with my kids. As a mom, I asked so many times for help. I never got it. I was taken as a joke by the brothers, the responsible ones. Um, and in my marriage, everything happens for a reason, you know? Maybe
Yep.
this is a reason why we're not together no more. We parted ways, but I was what we were called that independent woman within a marriage. I was alone. I never had the help or the love shown to my kids, and they were little because that stupid excuse, oh, I have to go visit the Alma, I have to go out and preach. What about us? What about your kids? Take them. And that stupid Dominical Sunday school that the brothers would always give out, hermanas, you guys should be the one taking care of your kids. No, because it should never be a one person's job. It should always be two people. Two people procreate, two people have children. That's why you're considered a family. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
how many kids you guys have. And that's something that affected me in the obra, seeing how also right there in the island that we were in, there was a sister who had like four kids and she was always struggling by herself. That's a shame and it's embarrassing because La Luz del Mundo doesn't care for that. La Luz del Mundo doesn't, they don't consider women, they don't consider their mental health. Yes, I know men go through a lot as well in the obra, but women, especially obreras, when you're working to be of a help to your husband, especially in activities, they dismiss the fact that you have to juggle all these things while they just go to work, come home, eat, get ready to go to church, go preach, and that's it. You're struggling mentally. They don't know exactly what we go through as mothers. Sometimes you want to go crazy, but it's normal because you're the one struggling with the children. And I blame La Luz del Mundo because that's what they teach you. They teach you to become independent, just to be there for your husband. And I will say it, sexually intimate,
Mhm.
or just to be seen as a trophy wife because you don't question, you don't say much, or you just obey in everything that you're told. But nobody talks about the struggles of raising children within this cult and without having the help of your husband. Obviously, it's not always the case in many people, but at least in Hawaii, that's something that I always saw. No matter where I went and which island, it's always the same thing. It's always the women carrying out the family, them being pretty much, yeah, what the minister said. Ustedes tienen los pantalones. Yes, we did. We did. We were the ones pushing our husbands, not all of us, but the ones who had children. Hey, help me here. Hey, help me there. We were the ones getting everything ready. And it's sad to see that because when you get to that point, your marriage is broken. You don't want to realize it, you don't want to admit it, but it's broken.
Yeah,
And it's sad. It's very sad
it is.
because children grow up thinking that's right, especially boys. They grow up thinking this is right because I saw my mom do this and that, so why should I help if my mom's the one who always has everything together? Yes, thanks to the women. I think that's why many marriages in La Luz del Mundo are still together because of women.
Right.
And
100%
and
right.
it's not that I'm a feminist or
No.
I'm a machista. No, I'm not. It's just things that I noticed that I saw and that made me realize this is what La Luz del Mundo teaches you, sadly. And it's very sad, but it's true. And it's not that I'm trying to make this episode about my marriage, but in many things
It's a big part of your
I
life.
was hurt. I was hurt.
Well,
And you know, no matter how hard I wanted to fix the marriage, I saw that there was that what we call no point a point of no return.
return. Yeah.
No matter what I did, no matter even if I woke up extra early, go to the 5 after that, fix his lunch or whatever it is, because he would go into work at a very early hour of the day. No matter what happened, and I will say it because he had that example. And I will say this, he knew what was going on. He knew what was going on with everything, with the whole caso of Nason. He knew of the girls, of the victims. And I will say shame, because him knowing he didn't have a voice or a choice to leave, he decided to be there. And I
Yeah.
don't know his reasons, but he knew what was going on. I didn't. I didn't know. When he told me, I was in shock because it was after he got arrested. He knew everything what was going on. He had screenshots, he had pictures, and me trying not to freak out, I tried talking to the minister about it. But to my surprise, this minister, that deacon, he also knew everything that was going
Of
on.
course. Of course.
Everything. And
I
it just breaks my heart because, even though it was considered that island the gutter, it wasn't the gutter how we thought it was. It wasn't. It was hell. Living
was
in these conditions, it was hell because there were so many things we weren't able to do. And yes, I must say, many of the struggles we had were financial because we had to juggle. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping back and forth right now,
it's okay.
but it's just coming to my mind. We struggled financially because we had to juggle paying $1,000 in rent for one room, because the rent out there is really expensive. It's Hawaii, especially if you want to live in a nice neighborhood. It's gonna cost you. So we were struggling financially with paying the rent and also having for our diezmos, along with me making money on the side, selling food or anything that I was able to sell through Marketplace to be able to help him. So we were able to sustain ourselves. On top of that, asking for welfare, it's hell.
You know what I can't believe, Mija, is how you guys go out there to the unknown, not
Yeah.
knowing the country, not knowing the city. You work, and you would think that, and you know that the jobs you're going to get don't pay well, right? But then you work, and you still have to give the tithing. But yet, there's these bigger head honcho ministers at big churches. They get paid by the church, their gourmet, right? Do you think they pay 10% of their gourmet back to the church? Heck no, they don't do that. And
No.
that's what bugs the heck out of me is the abuse that they do to these younger generations that give themselves to the labor. Is, there's no training, there's no nothing. You just go a la brava. You just go out there and you do your thing and just survive. No wonder your marriage failed because of all that.
Yeah.
As it is, as a normal life, there's so much work to keep a relationship, going. Ahora with all this stuff that goes on, it's even worse. So
Yes.
it's that I'm sorry that you went through it, Mija, and I'm happy that I met you. I feel blessed that you had the opportunity to come on here and tell your story, so that people know what really goes on behind the scenes. And I want to
Yes.
say something really quick. Is I heard the second episode of the Europe
Hmm.
documentary came on. I heard it this morning, and I heard you crying right now, and it just brings me to tears as a woman, because I feel your pain. But I heard
Yeah.
Sarah on and saying, "I just want to tell my husband I'm sorry, because I was the one that brought him here. I
Yeah.
want to tell my girls that I'm sorry because of what they went through. Because her daughter also told her story of how she knew she was never abused by someone, but all her friends were. And on that documentary at the end, there's actually an attorney talking to the woman that is doing the whole filming, and it's saying there is now a case in Europe of girls in Spain that were raped by someone, and maybe even by Mason. And it's like, it's just that, Kevin, it's just irritates me that here we are, 2025, and these
Yeah.
things are still happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're gonna have to dedicate an episode to really like delve on, which probably will be next week. Thea and I are going to come together and kind of review everything that's been going on with these cases and everything, and just kind of have an opinion on it. But I want to finalize and use the last of these few minutes here to just make sure that as a guy, as a man, as un hermano who who saw the other side and who lived the other side, um, I still can't imagine feeling invisible and feeling like you have no voice, and I can't even imagine being convinced that my voice isn't there for me, in that it's not the will of God to speak up for myself. When the Bible is full of stories of women who spoke up for themselves and were blessed by God, Esther being one of them. We all know her story. We all know what she did. And her position was that of power. And she used her voice to protect her people. Yet we were convinced that women didn't have that kind of power and
Right.
that you shouldn't have that power. And what hurts the most is, and I think someone said it right now. Who was it? The ex true. This one right here. I see it with male family members who left the cult are trying to change because of what LODM has taught them. And I'll tell you right now exactly what it is that we were not taught. We were not taught as husbands accountability. We just weren't. And we were taught that to be faithful meant being accountable to the doctrine, but not to our wives. Yet somehow it all be the same thing. So there is, on both sides, there's that massive gap that this place has created for us. Um, but we are where we are regarding children. That's another thing that we never, no one talks about the kids that are born into these types of environments, because the idea of something so innocent being molded to think that living in a cult is okay, and then growing up accepting it as a truth and then defending it, it's too much of a pill to swallow. It is. And the idea of us now as parents, like, I couldn't imagine my son growing up in that place. I couldn't. I just couldn't. I would, I don't know what extent I would go through to make sure that my son never even has to go through anything like that. I imagine we feel the same way as well. Anyone listening that has kids feels the same way as well. And all of that just hurts. It just does. But Exoreta, I want to thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. It's not just us. It's not just the people that are watching this live right now. What you've shared is something that many women wish they could articulate and speak. And many men who are wondering what the secret is to a healthy relationship that have left that cult, this is the answer right here. It just is.
Leave the cult. Your
Yeah.
family.
Leaving the cult's a good start. I'll say
Yes,
that.
with that said, though, um, so I have you and your wife on my Facebook, and I see what a beautiful family you are. The time that you spend with your baby, and there's such little things are so big when it comes to your kids, when it comes to your family. When you talked with Vida also when she was on with us, I could see the love between you two, and it's beautiful how the Lord is blessing you. And Exolera has shared the same thing with me with her current husband, and by the grace of God, we were pulled out of there, and it, it it just I was talking to somebody else earlier, and it's like it wasn't that we were blind there, but we were taught that that was okay, especially with
Which is
guys.
worse. Which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a lot worse. A lot worse.
But we opened our eyes, and I do want to say this real quick is that um, Sarai did have a guest. Her name is Elizabeth on her podcast, and I'm hoping that she hears our podcast and hears you, Exodata, telling your story, and hopefully she can come with us. She's also an Exodata, and
Mhm.
and it's just so that she won't feel alone. I could feel her pain. I could feel that she's just starting to get courage to talk about her life and her story. And I'm hoping maybe, you know, we could encourage her to join us. And our podcast, we've always said, Kevin and I, we don't like drama. We don't like chismes. We like good chismes sometimes, but we're talking about
A cup of tea is all right every now and then, you know.
right, right. But what I'm saying is that it's telling our story and letting people know that, you know what, you're gonna be okay. You really
You
are.
are. Yeah.
And you know, Kevin and I are two that we had our doubts about God. We had our doubts about why is all this happening? Why did God allow all this stuff to happen? And it was, you know, and now we're okay. We're back into, you know, having that faith in the Lord and having the faith that we're going to be okay. And we
Hmm.
pray every day for all our family that is still in the cult, and that one day the Lord opens their eyes and you know they see the light, uh, that they are the light in the world. Not, you know, I feel like we're the light of the world because we're the ones that are coming out. You know, I've heard a lot of boomers, Kevin, that they're preaching now to them and saying that the apostle said that this was going to happen. It was that, and that he was going to start throwing away all the cizaña because of the people that really weren't in there. And I'm like going, oh my
Okay,
gosh,
bro.
with
Will
the
you
things,
do that?
yeah, the things that they make up. But anyway, yes, Exolina, I so enjoyed talking to you. I know that you and I have one-on-one conversations as well, and we had a big audience today, Kevin. And I really want to throw a shout out to everybody that joined us today. And if you guys, anyone wants to go on and join us and tell your story that can help somebody else, I know Exolina. I'm sure that what her story is going to wake a lot of millennials that are out there right now saying,
Oh yeah, I hope so. Thank you,
Mhm.
Thea, for the compliments. Um, if, and I'm saying this open, right? Because this is exactly what the fig tree is. It's a platform to be open. If I am, and if you see me any way good, loving to Dira, it's because she voiced her opinions when I was being a piece of shit inside of the cult. And I'm saying it flat out open like that because it's the honest truth. If I was super faithful to a doctrine, I was not a good husband to my wife, and that's just a fact. And it's something that I had to unlearn over time, and it wasn't something I learned on my own. It came from listening to the person that was suffering. It came from the person that felt invisible for a long time. It came from the person that felt like her voice was insignificant for the longest time. And over time, she gained her strength, and in turn, it became mine and it made me better. So if I'm good as a husband after the fact of leaving that cult, it's because of the hard work that she has put in. So, Exoreta, that's why I say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because everything that you have said, I promise you, and I'm going to say it again, I promise you, I did almost every single one of those things as a guy. Without the extreme examples or actually doing something physically, like, no, but all of that stuff, I saw myself, I could see the memories of me thinking that I was okay. And then me now looking back and realizing, wow, just wow, I really was a useless man to this world. And the only way that I could realize that was from someone like you who talks about it, right? So thank you very much for sharing your story. I know that to any guy listening, it'll be helpful if they open their hearts up. And to any ex obrero, ex obrera that wants to come on here and talk, I promise you, all I do is just honor your story and give you a platform to talk. I don't do anything else but that on
Mhm.
this podcast.
Kevin and Tia Tabby, um, I'm sorry. I get emotional at times, and I've been told before, if you cry, it's because you haven't healed completely. Maybe I haven't, but people are different in their feelings and their emotions. It is not that I shed a tear or I just bursted out right now in tears because I want the audience to feel connected to me. No, in no way. Or trying to, just make this podcast more interesting. No, it's just that sometimes the memories, everything that you remember and how you say, Kevin, you remember how you were when you were in the cult. And it's sad because many, many men in the cult, it's not just La Luz del Mundo, any other cult have the same mentality, the same mindset. It's a similarity because this is what these organizations teach you, to dismiss what a woman feels, to dismiss them as wives, and to just see them as sometimes just objects, to the point where I will say, again, it's not chisme. Again, I'm not trying to expose my ex, but to the point that when they see that there's no going back, and when the wife has a made up decision, like I did when I told him, you know what, I want to get a divorce, his answer was, please don't, because I finally realized I love you. It took him so many years to realize. I was married for almost 8 years, you know? So, my message to our audience and to those who are still in the cult, is the following. If your wife, even if it's a sister or a woman listening to their husband, telling them, hey, change this, change that, listen, don't dismiss it if you want to save your marriage. I mean, obviously, if it's meant to be, destiny, faith is different for each and every single one of us. Sometimes coming out of the cult, that was the only thing they had in common, just that faith. Outside, they don't have nothing in common. Like I told you and Tabby, when I got married, I didn't know him. So in a way, I don't blame him 100%, because maybe I'm going to say maybe I had some fault. Maybe I wasn't the woman that was for him, and maybe we just collided in that timeline because that's what we needed to go through together.
Yeah.
But if there's any way that these people who are still in the church or in the cult can save their marriages outside, being free, not belonging to La Luz del Mundo, if they can save their marriage and work from the ground up, go for it. But if you can't, speak up.
Speak up.
Speak up, because you're only going to be living your own hell within that marriage. We already lived enough hell in this cult. We don't need to continue doing so outside of it.
Right.
And just how Tia Tabby said, she went through that. You, Tia Tabby, you know how difficult it is to leave someone and then find love again, because us as humans, we want love. That's what we want. But at the same time, we want to show love. And I'm not talking about within our family, within our children, because that's unconditional love that we're going to give them regardless. But as a person, as a man, as a woman, you want to feel loved by
Hmm.
someone. So that's why I say, if there's no remedy, entre comillas, remedy outside of the cult, speak up.
Right.
Find your happiness, because La Luz del Mundo is not going to make you happy. They make you miserable. And it's sad because many marriages, how I said a few moments ago, many marriages are just accustomed to each other because of a faith, or because they
Yep.
think they don't have an exit. They don't have any other options. And I just want to finish saying this. If I had not gone to Hawaii with my ex, I don't know if I would have still been in the obra or in church. And I do say, even though it was a horrible experience emotionally, but it was a good thing that I went through it,
Learning
because
it.
I realized
Yeah.
it was my waking call. Hawaii was my
Hmm.
waking call. And I realized that Hawaii wasn't what I thought. La Luz del Mundo wasn't what I thought. This marriage that I had with him wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I didn't want to go any longer, because I wasn't going to keep up with all those behaviors that we were taught in the cult. So we had to unprogram ourselves. I had to unprogram myself. He had to go to therapy. because that was his way of coping with everything that he
Right.
knew. And yes, he might not speak about it. I've invited him. Hey, you should come and speak out your story. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, he has his reasons. This is
Of
me.
course.
I'm speaking my
Story.
truth, my
Yeah.
version of what I lived in La Luz del Mundo. And I can tell you that La Luz del Mundo is no future, no life for anybody who wants to live a happy life. Obviously, life has a lot of ups and downs, but in La Luz del Mundo they make you think if you're outside of this cult, it's the end of the world. It's not. It's only the beginning. Once you leave, you start living such a wonderful life. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible. So whoever's listening and whoever's still in the cult, please reconsider your life. And if you have children, please consider the life that you want to give to your children.
Right.
If you're struggling with your marriage and if you feel that you're not going to make it, it's okay. Speak out, speak about it. Because we have to bring and we have to acknowledge that your life is just church, activities, the election, supposedly, and that's it. They
Right.
don't teach you how to value your life. They teach you how to value the Joaquines,
That's right.
not your life. So I hope it does help somebody or someone or some group whenever they listen to this podcast. Although there are a lot more things that I went through, but obviously for, many reasons I cannot say. But I will tell you that leaving La Luz del Mundo and leaving my marriage forcibly, or I don't know how to say it, but by force I had to because I didn't want to keep going through that struggle. It
Hmm.
was the best thing I did because now I look at my life and I look at his life and we're happy. We're really happy.
Yay.
And I'm glad, I don't hate him. No hate here. We
Yeah.
get along pretty well. As I said before, we co parent
That's
fine,
great.
perfectly. And that's something that many people in the cult think we're not going to be able to because we're going to crash. We're going to clash
Right.
with each other. You're not. You're really not.
Exoverda, I think there is one more episode that we have yet to do together. And it'll be one where we can expand on all of it and we can jump back and forth through the timelines because now, at least through this podcast in English, we know your story now for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So trust me, there's going to be one more episode with us
Okay.
and it's going to be a great one. To your ex husband, bro, what's up? I'm ready when you are. As you can see, I'm not hating on nobody. We're just out here speaking truth, and you have a story, and it needs to be
I would
told
love
as
to
well.
hear his story. It would be
Yeah.
So, with
I,
that being said, I'm very sorry. I do have to cut the time now. It is our
Yeah.
time's up. I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Thank you for joining us, and
yes.
we will see you on the next one.
Perfect. All
Better.
right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.